may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
All right, guys, a ton of things happened this week that we need to talk about, but I'm going to let y'all know right now, we are recording this during the halftime of the Seattle Seahawks and the Minnesota Vikings game. So if anything crazy happens at the end of the game, if anything happens on Monday or Tuesday night, it is not going to be covered in this video, but it does not really matter because we are making 4 videos every single day, and going out there and live streaming every single night for y'all. And yeah, so guys, if y'all are not subscribed to the channel, truly, what are you waiting for at this point? I think like 70% of our viewers are not subscribed to the channel. Let's go join the race. I mean, we're going out there and we are getting to 20,000. It's going to happen sooner rather than later. So what are you waiting for? Go subscribe to the channel. We will be live streaming Monday night after the game, Tuesday night after the game, Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Central, Thursday night after the game, Friday night, 8:30 p.m. Central, Saturday, 8:30 p.m. Central, and Sunday morning. We live stream every single day. We usually try to go out there and live stream from anywhere for 3 to 4 hours every night. But thank you guys for coming to check out this video. Let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into the top 10 fantasy football lessons learned in week 5. And we are going to start it off with Bill O'Brien is a complete bum, and it is so nice to see the Houston Texans without Bill O'Brien calling plays. I mean, Deshaun Watson went out there about 350 yards, just an insane performance, going and locking onto Brandon Cooks and also providing that value for Will Fuller. Now, I don't necessarily think that we can expect this type of production from Deshaun Watson every single week. We have to acknowledge the fact that this was an extremely easy matchup going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But now I think Deshaun Watson is right back up with the other elite group of quarterbacks in fantasy, because not only can he go out there and throw for a ton of passing volume, which we know is going to be extremely productive, but he also provides you the rushing equity. And I talk about this all the time, guys. Y'all are probably annoyed with me talking about how important it is for these quarterbacks in fantasy to go out there and provide you just say 40 rushing yards a game. That is going to drastically increase both their floor and their ceiling, and it's a literal cheat code in fantasy football, and we need to go out there and try to take advantage of it. So Deshaun Watson, Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, and honestly even David Johnson. I thought David Johnson was going to take a step back without Bill O'Brien, but it looks like all of these key players in the Houston Texans offense should be just going out there and projecting to score more points down the stretch in 2020 than they would have with Bill O'Brien calling plays. Okay, now our next lesson learned is Henry Ruggs is going to unlock this Las Vegas Raiders offense. I went out there and told a ton of people to go, not necessarily start Henry Ruggs, but to go out there and start Josh Jacobs, trade for Josh Jacobs, because we understood that what this Las Vegas Raiders offense was missing over the past few weeks is they had absolutely nobody to stretch the field, and the safeties were able to kind of crawl in, stack the box against Josh Jacobs, and the Las Vegas Raiders had an insanely hard time moving the ball down the field, but they just put up 40 points against the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, we're not going to expect this kind of performance from Derek Carr every single week, but I think every single player on the Las Vegas Raiders offense is going to be helped with the addition of Henry Ruggs, because Henry Ruggs is going to add an element to this offense that is going to provide just so much more production and points scored on a week-to-week basis. Okay, now our next lesson learned is stay away from all 49ers players and not named George Kittle or Raheem Mostert. Okay, so I kind of said this going into the week where I actually thought that Deebo Samuel was an intriguing buy low at the moment. That does not look to be the case, as this team is having a horrible time moving the ball down the field. They even ended up benching Jimmy Garoppolo, something that I'm sure nobody expected against the Miami Dolphins. So now going out there, and when we are trying to project this offense going forward, we know that George Kittle is going to be the #1 target for this offense each and every week. This offense is going to try to run the ball first, throw the ball second. So what are we really going to be looking for with Deebo Samuel and with Brandon Ayuk? I don't necessarily think either one of these players has a target share that they're going to be able to get anything over 20% of the team's targets. And when the overall passing volume is going to be low anyway, I mean, just with Deebo Samuel and with Brandon Ayuk, I thought that maybe it would be a little bit more intriguing for Deebo if they had just a larger pie to go around, because we know that there are going to be a ton of guys at the table trying to get some targets in this offense. And if there are not that many targets to go around, I don't know if we can necessarily ever say we are going to be confident in starting Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk. Okay, now our next lesson learned is going to be in that same game, and that is we were entirely too low on Myles Gaskin. Now, the problem with Myles Gaskin, at least what I perceived to be a problem a week ago, was that he was getting absolutely no goal line usage whatsoever. Every single time the ball was within the 5-yard line, we actually saw Jordan Howard in the game and not Myles Gaskin. And I thought that this was going to significantly lower down the touchdown equity that we were going to see from Myles Gaskin, as well as lowering his overall fantasy football ceiling. But he actually scored his touchdown today, I believe only like 2 or 3 yards out. And that is going to be big news for Myles Gaskin, because if he continues to see this type of usage in the receiving game, and on top of that, we can expect him to get goal line work. I mean, this is a running back that does have high-end running back 2 in his range of outcomes, and extremely, extremely exciting for any team that was able to get him off the waiver wire. Okay, now this is going to be the worst lesson that we learned. This is definitely going to be the saddest lesson that we learned in week 5, but that is no Dallas Cowboys wide receiver is safe. Now I know CeeDee Lamb looked like a complete smash. I actually went out there and thought that this was not the best spot to play CeeDee Lamb, because I thought it was going to be a little bit harder for this New York Giants team to go out there and put up points. They ended up getting a pick 6, which really allowed the Dallas Cowboys to have to go out there and throw the ball aggressively and rack up points for CeeDee Lamb. Regardless, that's not the lesson here. The lesson is Dak Prescott is out for the entire year. And we saw Amari Cooper this game go out there and have 2 receptions for 20 yards. And Amari Cooper coming into this game was the wide receiver 1 overall in fantasy football. So by seeing him go out there and just be completely taken out, I think that this is going to be a situation where we don't know what to expect from Andy Dalton. I think that we are going to really have to put a little microscope on this game in week 6, look at where Andy Dalton decides to throw the ball. And now it's great that this Dallas Cowboys offense does have one of these premium backup quarterbacks, probably one of the best quarterbacks in the entire NFL in Andy Dalton, and they are fantastic weapons. So I'm not necessarily saying that Amari Cooper is going to go from the wide receiver 1 overall in fantasy to not being startable, but I'm saying that all of these wide receivers look like they could potentially be extremely volatile week to week. I mean, every guy outside of CeeDee Lamb at this point has had his down performance, and I just don't know if we can 100% with certainty say that we are going to see a wide receiver 1 week from any of these guys any given week. I mean, I went out there and I thought Amari Cooper would be a top 5 wide receiver this week. The Dallas Cowboys went out there, put up a ton of points, and Amari ended the game with 2 receptions. Okay, now our next lesson is Calvin Ridley is 100% back. And this is something that I was actually right about in week 5, one of the few things, going out there telling as many people to plug in Calvin Ridley as they could. And I think that a ton of people overreacted to that week 4 performance. I mean, we clearly are seeing Calvin Ridley be a top 5 wide receiver in terms of fantasy points scored. He was actually the wide receiver 1 overall after 3 weeks, and I'm assuming after going out there and dropping 8 receptions for over 130 yards this week, we could see Calvin Ridley, if you take that week 4 performance out and just look at the stats, be the number 1 wide receiver overall, something that we are extremely interested in going out there and playing. And another lesson we learned from this game is you cannot start Matt Ryan if Julio Jones is going to be inactive. This is something we said going into the week, but still, I want to hammer this home. I think we actually end up seeing Julio Jones in next week's game, but that's something we are definitely going to have to monitor. Okay, now let's go to our next wide receiver. This is another lesson learned, and this is DJ Moore. I mean, you need to bail out on DJ Moore at this point. Now, y'all know I went out there and told y'all to start DJ Moore this game, and yes, he actually had a fantastic game, but he did it on 5 targets. I mean, only seeing 5 targets in this offense for DJ Moore, where Robbie Anderson was actually the guy that yet again went out there and proved to be the alpha wide receiver target on this offense. Guys, I think that we are going to go out there, and while I love DJ Moore, I have DJ Moore on a ton of fantasy football teams, I think that we are going to look to sell after his only game providing you fantasy production came off of only 5 targets. I mean, I don't necessarily know what we can expect from DJ Moore week to week, but it's probably going to be less than his current trade value is. Okay, now our next lesson is Chase Claypool is completely killing Juju Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson. I mean, Deontay Johnson left this game early on with, I believe he took a shot in the back, and that's why he was gone. But regardless, I think that now we saw Chase Claypool have this performance. We're not necessarily going to say he's the wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh, but you better believe that Chase Claypool is going to have an every down role. He's going to be taking a ton of targets away from both Juju Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson. And trust me, guys, I mean, I love Juju. I have so so much money invested into Juju. He was my #1 draft target this season, and Chase Claypool is just making me look so dumb for going out there and putting that on the record, because Chase Claypool had looked dominant this week, putting up 4 touchdowns, over 100 yards, 7 receptions. Pretty sure Chase Claypool's also just 21 years old. I mean, just absolutely insane with what we are seeing from him. Okay, now our next lesson, this is probably going to be one of the guys we try to go out there and buy this week, is Joe Mixon is currently matchup proof. So while the Cincinnati Bengals went out there, did not even put up 1 touchdown, Joe Mixon did not have a bad fantasy game, and this was based on the fact that he was able to go out there and he was able to accrue 6 targets. And I know that does not necessarily sound like a massive deal, but when we understand that Joe Mixon is going out there and continuing to get this receiving game usage, this is going to be a running back that has a high floor, and at the same time, we are going to already know that what his ceiling is whenever the Cincinnati Bengals team is able to put up 30 points any given week, we could see another blow-up week like we saw them with the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 4. I mean, so extremely, extremely encouraging for Joe Mixon this week, despite the horrendous performance from the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay, now our next lesson is actually going to be a very under-the-radar lesson, so I wanted to keep this to the very end. But Cam Akers is back and has emerged himself in this Los Angeles Rams offense. Now, I actually went out there and said, do not start Darrell Henderson this week. He's not necessarily going to see the targets or the receptions that he had in weeks 3 and 4, and that was due to Cam Akers coming back to this offense. I actually look at this Los Angeles Rams offense to be very similar to what we are currently seeing in Baltimore with another team who took a second-round running back, and yet instead of going out there and giving them the feature down role, they are going out there and they are running a 3-man platoon at the running back position. And what that is going to make me want to do is that's going to want me to make me just completely stay away from Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown at the moment. Guys, there is no better sell in fantasy football at the moment, besides Todd Gurley, of course, than Darrell Henderson. I mean, Cam Akers coming back, getting 9 carries for over 60 yards, I mean, is going to be something that continues to cut into Darrell Henderson's production as Cam Akers continues to go out there and emerge in this Los Angeles Rams offense. But thank you guys. I really hope you all enjoyed the video. I really hope you all got something from it. And please go down to the comments. Let me know the dumbest thing that I told you in week 5. Let me know the dumbest start sit answer I gave you. Let me know the dumbest trade advice I gave you. Please, I am all ears. I want everyone else down in the comments to hear it as well. And yeah, go down there, roast me, and I will see y'all in the next video. And hopefully I will see y'all in the live stream on Monday night.